here. Welcome, football fans, to the best week of football. And welcome to Owner's Box Fantasy. I'm Mitch, and this is your NFL Divisional Round preview. In this video, I will pick each game. I will pick the game straight up versus the spread. And I will even provide a few props that I think could be pretty enticing for this weekend. If that sounds good, spike the like button. And don't forget to jump in the comment section and let me know your picks for divisional round. Who do you think will advance to the conference championship games? Who will play in the AFC championship? Who will play in the NFC championship for an opportunity to go to Super Bowl 59. In this video, I'm going to give you an X factor for each team. I'm going to break down the matchups that I think are going to be crucial in each game. Let's kick it off with the first matchup in the AFC. The Houston Texans, as the 4 seed, will travel to the Kansas City Chiefs. Arrowhead. The Chiefs, finally, are going to play some football. It's been a minute. The Chiefs are back in our lives, our playoff lives. And this game, I think pretty much everybody is going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't blame them whatsoever. The Chiefs are proven back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They have the best coach in the league. They have the best winner at the quarterback position currently playing. Maybe not the best quarterback right now at this moment in time, but overall, Patrick Mahomes has proven that above all else, he will perform in the playoffs. Now, I break this matchup down, and I think it's a defensive battle. I think the Chiefs' defense has been the superior unit throughout the season. I think the Texans' pass rush showed us last week that they could get after Justin Herbert, disrupt Herbert, cause him to have many incompletions. The ball hit the ground a lot, and many sacks, and many interceptions. They caused turnovers. They caused problems for the Chargers offensively. The Chiefs are not a potent offense, but what they do well is they manufacture yards, long drives, and time of possession. And that's what they did in the first game pretty well. You might recall they have played already this season. The final score was 27-19 for the Chiefs. Interestingly, that game was really close at one point. It was actually 17-16. It would have been 17-17 if the extra point would have hit, but the kicker missed. And I think in part because the play that scored the game-tying touchdown was Tank Dell getting injured in the end zone, which completely derailed the Texans emotionally. They were done in that game after that happened, and it was really indicative in the final score. It was 27-19, the final score. It was 17-17, but the Chiefs took over in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs separated. But I look at that game, and I saw some things from that game offensively that the Texans can try to replicate in terms of a quick passing game, in terms of trying to find some one-on-ones that they do like to attack. I think somebody like John Mechie is going to have to step up big time in place of Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz, I think, is the X factor for the Houston Texans at tight end, because the Chiefs were one of the worst teams defending the tight end position this season. If you follow this channel for fantasy football, you know that to be the case. Schultz had a good game in his first game against the Chiefs. He had over 50 yards. He had a touchdown. So I would take a look at a prop like 34.5 receiving yards for Dalton Schultz, because I think that is an individual matchup that even if the Chiefs get some cornerbacks back in the lineup, everybody's talking about that. Oh, Watson's going to be back. Okay, great. Well, that doesn't really matter against the tight end position because he won't be covering him, right? It will be Justin Reed. It will be Connor. And Schultz will feast in that matchup, and I think that is the X factor. Without Tank Dell, Nico Collins is going to get plenty of football. He's going to get plenty of targets, but someone else is going to have to win a one-on-one, and that could be Dalton Schultz. Hopefully, John Mechie, Robert Woods, these other guys do step up in that regard. A little bit unknown, though. Another guy that's going to have to play a big role offensively for the Texans, obviously, is running back Joe Mixon, who's had success in the playoffs against the Chiefs before as a member of the Bengals. He played fantastic against the Chargers, and he seemingly is a clutch player. In these big moments, he plays really, really well. If they can run the ball, they can possess the ball, keep it away from Mahomes, that's what the Chiefs want to do. They want long drives offensively. They want to kill the clock. They want to go and really possess the ball to control the game because they're not an explosive offense. So if the Texans can somehow flip that through their running game, I think that's going to be absolutely crucial for their success. His prop of rushing yards is sitting at about 57.5. I would lean towards the over because I just see so much volume for this guy in this game. I see a tight defensive battle, so I don't think they're ever going to have to get away from the running game here, and I think you're going to see a high dosage of Joe Mixon to keep Steve Spagnuolo on his toes, to not just allow him to unleash blitz after blitz after blitz against this Texans offensive line that we know is susceptible to pressure, stunts, blitzes. They struggle, okay? So early down success running the ball is going to be important. I think the Texans will struggle on third down to block Chris Jones. I think that's going to be a big problem for them. I think that the Texans, outside of Nico Collins, I struggle to find answers consistently. If they had Tank Dell, I'd feel better about this matchup. But I think if Stroud can be Stroud from the Charger game where we saw kind of spades, just glimpses of the success we saw as a rookie, that could go a long way. That crazy fumble play where he turned it into a magical completion. That is what CJ Stroud needs to bring to this game, and he can't bring 2 interceptions like he did the first time against the Chiefs. I thought the Texans, they played them well the first time. I think they can play them well the second time. And a lot of it is going to be dependent on the defense, right? On that side of the ball, it's going to come down to the pass rush for the Texans. The Texans can get after the quarterback, Danielle Hunter. Danico Autry is, in my opinion, a very slept-on player for this matchup in particular because Joe Thuney has moved out to left tackle. He's my X factor for the Chiefs. With Joe Thuney at left tackle, Danico Autry inside is going to have to penetrate and get pressure against the no longer left guard Joe Thuney, right? He's at left tackle. So that might take care of Danielle Hunter a little bit more. Will Anderson should be able to feast against Jawan Taylor pretty well. And a big factor in this game is the linebacker health of the Texans. They didn't have Azeez Al-Shaair in the first game. They'll have Christian Harris and Azeez, which is really going to help them against the run game, the screen game, and the horizontal passing of the Chiefs because of the speed of those linebackers. Lassiter and Stingley were phenomenal against the Chargers, and I think they should be able to lock down and slow down Worthy and DeAndre Hopkins. So somebody like Marquise Brown could have actually kind of a tricky good game here. But one other guy that could have a really good game is Patrick Mahomes with his leg, because the Texans actually allowed the most rushing yards per attempt to the quarterback position this season. So over 4.5 attempts for Mahomes, or even his rushing total, does sound enticing here. He did have 5 attempts in the first matchup, and the prop is set at 4.5. With quarterback kneel and stuff like that, that could definitely get you over. So it's a playoff game. Mahomes tends to run in these settings. I think that the Texans are really going to make this game competitive. I think this game is going to be closer than most people expect, mostly because the Chiefs just don't really blow out opponents. Their point differential is extremely low for a team that won 15 games for a reason. And the Texans looked a little bit better on defense and offense last week. They really brought it against the Chargers. I mean, did you know they had 429 yards? I didn't think that. Not the way the game flow went, but their defense utterly dominated. And I could see them giving the Chiefs and Mahomes some fits up front. And I don't see the Chiefs really running the ball that well either to slow the pass rush down. So I think the Chiefs win at home because they're the better team, and I struggled to see the Texans being able to score enough to win this game, but I do think they can cover the spread of 8 or 8.5. So that's going to be my pick for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Moving to the next matchup, we have the Washington Commanders taking on the Detroit Lions. This is another 1-seed matchup. The Commanders being the lone real upset of round 1, right? Like Rams over the Vikings, sort of an upset, but I mean, not really. The Rams were the higher seed at the end of the day. The Lions are favored by 9.5, so nearly double digits, obviously 2 scores. And I think it is definitely sound. Like, I totally get it, why it's a 9.5 point spread. Because unlike the Buccaneers, I'm not sure the Commanders are just going to be able to possess the football, control the game, get a little lucky with a doink off the crossbar or off the bar, get lucky with a fumble in their own end. The Lions are just so good at that style of play. The way the Commanders needed to play to beat the Bucs and a great offense in Tampa Bay is the way they're going to have to play against Detroit. But the thing about Detroit is they play wild defensively, which often results in explosive plays, negative plays, and 3-and-outs. Like, the Lions defense plays a heavy man coverage style. They play a heavy blitz style, and they're very volatile. So within that, the Commanders might hit some big plays. Terry McLaurin. Daniels might be able to scramble for a 20-yard chunk and get outside the pocket. They might go on a quick drive. But against Tampa, the goal was we got to hold the ball. We're going to convert a lot of third downs. We're going to have really efficient first and second down play. Daniels is going to run a lot. We're going to get a lot of quick screens, a lot of quick throws, right? And we're going to stay on schedule, and we're going to be in third and manageable. But against Detroit, they're excellent against the run. I don't think that Brian Robinson will be able to run the football here, or the running backs of the Commanders will be able to run the football, forcing the ball in the hands of Jayden Daniels. Now, because of that, I like the under for Brian Robinson in this game. Under 35.5 rushing yards. It's very low, but I would still take the under for a variety of reasons. The Lions are going to race out to a lead most likely in this game, forcing more passing from the Commanders. But secondly, the Lions are much better against the run than they are the pass. So this should be a pass-heavy script for Jayden Daniels. A lot of short throws, a lot of quick outlets, a lot of hot reads versus the blitz, and a lot of like quick curls to Terry McLaurin, option routes to Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler screens, things like that. Jayden Daniels running. But I think that because the Commanders won't be able to just get 4 yards here, 5 yards there, against this team, because the Lions are so aggressive defensively, there's going to be negative plays. It's just the way it is. There's going to be negative plays, and there's going to be explosives. So I think the Lions are going to get the ball a lot more than the Bucs did. And I think within that, they're going to be able to control the game against the Commander defense. Even if the Commanders stack the box against the Lions like they did Tampa early in the game, I don't think they're going to be able to stop the run early in the game like they did Tampa. I think Detroit will be able to run it, which is why I like Jahmyr Gibbs over 83.5 rushing yards. Okay? I think a key factor here for the Commanders to make this one interesting is to have the alternative options outside of Terry McLaurin actually be successful. Guys like Zach Ertz win one-on-ones. Guys like Austin Eckler creating yards after catch in the screen game. A guy like Zacchaeus, can he step up and beat Amik Robertson on, an in route on third down, right? Can he score a touchdown in this game? Can, other than Terry McLaurin, somebody step up in a big spot and be the guy that's going to win one-on-one? Because against the Lions, they provide one-on-ones defensively. They play a lot of man coverage. We saw the Niners rip them up. But then on the other side of the coin, we saw Sam Darnold have a lot of failure, and the receivers of the Vikings really struggle with the physicality of Detroit. So I don't think the Commanders really have the great depth, the great receiving core to be able to just beat man consistently time after time after time. One area the Commanders can attack the Lions is through Jayden Daniels' legs, where they are the second worst team against quarterbacks on the ground per rush. The Texans are the worst. The Lions are the second worst. So I could see Daniels going over 54.5, especially if they fall behind and he's having to run and he's having to create and he's having to chase and race back into this game, right? So that does make sense for a variety of reasons. It should be part of their game plan, but it should also be a part of the second half if the Lions are scoring, which they should against the Commanders. The Commanders are not a very good defense. Marshon Lattimore didn't really seem to help against Mike Evans, right? That was something we learned last week. I don't think that really having Marshon Lattimore is really going to help against the Lions because Jameson Williams can fly by him. He's much faster, but also you're just taking Jameson Williams. What about Amon-Ra underneath? What about the run game that is going to be playing a bottom 5 run defense? They're going to have to overcommit to that, which is going to open up Amon-Ra, going to open up bombs to Jameson, it's going to open up Sam Laporta one-on-one with some of these slower linebackers and or safeties. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is going to have a monstrous game. I think he's going to hit multiple explosive runs in this game. So I think the Lions are too good offensively. They can beat you in too many different ways. They control the game. They're aggressive. They're going to go for 4th down and 1 every single time. And I don't think the Commanders will have an answer. And on the other side, I just think that the Lions' style of defense is going to get them more stops. And I think a guy that will be key to that is my X factor for the Lions, Jack Campbell, a linebacker that's great in space, very good in coverage this season, excellent against the run. He was my favorite linebacker in last year's draft. He's really developed into a Pro Bowl level linebacker in year 2. He has been such an underrated player for them in their blitzes, in their coverage, in their taking away of the running back or the tight end. He's going to be the guy that is tracking and spying Jayden Daniels McDaniels, which makes him such an X factor in this game to hold the rookie quarterback to a modest day. So I like the Lions here to win and cover just because I think they're going to be too much from an offensive standpoint. They're just going to be able to win and I think create separation in the second half. It might be close and a little bit of a back and forth and shootout early, but I think eventually the Lions will show their prowess and they will come out on top and cover by at least 2 scores. The third matchup in the divisional round is the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. The last game, the Commanders and Lions, was our only game that wasn't a rematch. This is another rematch of a game played earlier in the year. 37-20 was the final for Philadelphia in Los Angeles. Now we flip it and it's going to be played in Philadelphia. What's interesting about this is the game in Los Angeles was the Eagles minus 2.5 at close. The Eagles dominated and covered easily in that game. The score at one point was 37-14. A lot of money came in on the Rams. Now this game's going to be in Philly and it's minus 6 for the Eagles. Okay. I think the Eagles are the much more talented team and I thought they were the much better team for a majority of the year. That being said, the way that Jalen Hurts looked against the Packers compared to how Matthew Stafford looked against the Vikings has people wondering if the Rams will be the upset of the week. Sean McVay is the far superior schemer to Nick Sirianni, but Vic Fangio has had the number of Sean McVay over the years. Something to think about there. Now, the X factor for the Eagles, in my opinion, is their interior pass rush. Now, something that I thought the Vikings didn't match up well with the Rams was the Vikings love to blitz. And Stafford is a experienced veteran who's seen all the blitzes in the world. Nothing will ever shock him or surprise him. He's got Puka Nacua, he's got Cooper Kupp, and the great scheme of Sean McVay to find answers and hot reads against the blitz consistently time after time after time. And so he ripped it up. Every single time he had an opportunity, I think he was 14 for 18 against the blitz. He was absolutely spectacular. Okay. Matthew Stafford's always been great against the blitz, but against the Eagles, they don't tend to blitz that much. It's very situational because they trust their pass rush. You've always been able to get to Stafford when you 4-man rush. Think about how the Niners have traditionally played Stafford or even played him in the rain earlier this year. It's a lot of 4-man rush and a lot of zone. You want to clog up the spaces. You want to force tight window throws. You want to force Stafford to think he can throw the ball into that very tight window that actually doesn't exist because he has a superior superhuman arm, but sometimes it just doesn't make its way through that really tight window against a linebacker and a safety, right? So Jalen Carter and Milton Williams will be absolutely essential for the Eagles. Williams had 2 sacks in the first matchup. Jalen Carter's one of the best D tackles in football, and he absolutely dominated the Packers last week. So I think these two are going to be huge because why? Well, Stafford is a pocket passer. You need guys around his feet. You need him to be a little bit aware of that pressure. You need him to be a little antsy in the pocket, not being able to set his feet fully or trust the protection in front of him, having to shuffle and move outside the pocket. That's where you get Stafford in trouble. That's where traditionally he has not played his best. Okay, the secondary of the Eagles should be able to match up pretty well. They actually were amazing against the Rams on third down in the first matchup. That probably will turn just a little bit in the Rams' favor because it won't be that bad. I mean, it was truly really bad. I think they might have converted like 1 third down the entire game, right? On the other side of the football, I think that, the Eagles, the question will be, can they run the ball to the same success rate that they did against the Rams the first time? Because if you guys remember correctly, like Saquon had 255 yards. I'm not making that number up. He had 255 rushing yards in the first game they played. Jalen Hurts also ran the ball fairly successfully as well, right? Kyron Williams had a modest 75 yards on the other side. That's actually a good day against the Eagles. If they could get that again, that could go a long way in helping them win. I don't necessarily think so. I'd actually take the under 75.5 on the rushing yards for Kyron Williams. Despite the attempts and potentially the volume, I think the Eagles front is going to dominate the Rams. I think that's going to be the story of the game. I think that's why they're going to go and win this game at home. Part of it is also the weather. I don't think the Rams are going to be overly successful offensively because they're outdoors. They have not been the same team outdoors. We saw them play against the Jets. We saw them play against the Niners recently outdoors. Not the same team, not the same offense. Stafford struggles with his accuracy a little bit more. The timing and the rhythm and the conservative nature of Sean McVay kind of seems to be off in that setting. And the Rams are a dome team. They're LA. They're shiny lights. They're Hollywood. They're not a Philadelphia a Rocky Balboa slugfest type of team. And the Eagles in a slugfest with a little bit of rain, that's exactly what they want. Jalen Hurts can run it. Saquon can run it 50 times if they want, right? Like the A.J. Brown doesn't even need the ball and they can still win. But speaking of A.J. Brown, he was a problem for the Rams in the first game. Once Saquon started gashing him and hitting him with plays, A.J. Brown was going crazy. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Akilla Witherspoon will be an absolute X factor for them. If he can slow down A.J. Brown a little bit with his size, his frame, he's a little bit beat up going into this game. He left last game a little bit injured, but he played amazing against Justin Jefferson. He's been playing great lately, and he's been very highly graded this season. He's physical. He's got long arms. He's got a good matchup physically with A.J. Brown. He's one of the few guys that can do that, and I don't think he played the first game, so that's a complete wild card where if he can slow down A.J. Brown, maybe they can commit resources to stopping Saquon a little bit better. Devontae Smith also did not play in the first game, so he's somebody that they're going to have to slow down. Darius Williams is seemingly a decent matchup for him, given the quickness and the frame of both of those players. Now, another prop that I do think is going to be a decent one to bet would be Puka Nacua going over 2.5 rushing yards in this game. That, or just rushing yards in general, like I think Puka Nacua, McVay's going to have to find a way to get him the ball, because Fangio is not just going to let Puka Nacua go off. And these corners are way too good to just force feed him in targets through the passing game. So finding ways to get Puka the ball, especially against these linebackers without Nakobe Dean being in the lineup now, with him getting injured in the last game against the Packers, forcing them to move horizontally, read things, read the eye candy of the receiver in motion, and getting reverses and handoffs and jet sweeps. Like Puka Nacua could have a very nice game here, even running the ball. So over 2.5 rushing yards makes sense to me. Saquon's rushing prop is absolutely ridiculous at 115 yards. Like, I'm not betting that, of course not. But again, he had 255 yards. That will be the story of the game. Can they stop it or can they not? I think that the Eagles will be able to do what they want more often than not on the ground. I think the Eagles will be able to rush Stafford and make him uncomfortable more often than not. And that's why I think the Eagles will win and cover. I don't think it will be pretty. I think it will be quite defensive and probably ugly weather. But something like 24-17, winning by about a touchdown, does make sense to me. The Eagles are the far superior talent in this team. And the Rams played great. The Rams played a phenomenal game last week. The Eagles played really bad, right? The Eagles played a really sloppy game, and they still won, and they still covered. So I think the Eagles are just that good, and they'll take care of the Rams at home. The final division matchup is the Ravens, favored by 1 on the road at the Buffalo Bills. These teams also played earlier in the season, right? 35-10 in week 4, the Baltimore Ravens absolutely dismantled and shockingly destroyed Buffalo. Now, a huge factor in that game was Derrick Henry. He had an absolutely monstrous game, similar to Saquon against the Rams, but unlike the Rams, the Bills were not healthy in that game from a run defense standpoint. They were without their 2 starting linebackers, Matt Milano and Bernard. They were also missing their nickel corner, Teron Johnson, and their most physical, biggest safety, Taylor Rapp. So their run defense was extremely susceptible in the first matchup, which allowed the Ravens to basically run the ball at will. Lamar actually didn't do a ton in that game. He didn't have a 200-yard game. He really didn't have, a phenomenal outing. It was mostly Derrick Henry, and their defense actually stood up and played extremely well. Another addition to this game that I think could be a complete X factor for Buffalo is Amari Cooper. But I'm going to flip this on the head, because I don't think the Bills are going to be held to 10 points in this game. They're at home. They basically average 30 plus points a game at home. They've scored 30 plus points at home, I think 7 out of 8 games. Last week, they played the number 1 defense in football, and they dismantled them, and they did whatever they wanted on the ground or through the air, James Cook or Josh Allen. And I think Amari Cooper is an X factor, but when you reverse card it, you look at the Ravens and you say Brandon Stephens, because I recall in that game in week 4, and I've seen throughout the season, Brandon Stephens has been a problem for the Ravens secondary. He is their weakness. A lot of teams don't attack it enough. Josh Allen will attack it. Coleman had some big plays in week 4. We saw George Pickens. We saw even Mike Williams. We saw Van Jefferson. Even last week, the Steelers were able to attack Brandon Stephens a little bit. And Russell Wilson actually put up some nice passing yards. This Ravens defense is a little bit inflated right now because they haven't really played a great great quarterback. They haven't really played a great offense as of late. They feasted on the Giants. They feasted on the Browns without Jameis. They feasted on the Steelers twice. They haven't played a Josh Allen in a long time, but we've seen them play Joe Burrow get ripped up, right? So Brandon Stevens is a perimeter corner for them that I think Amari Cooper could route up. Stevens is big, but he's not quick, and he's not good at sticking with route runners. I think Cooper could have a great day there. Coleman even showed some success against him the first time. So that trade, Amari Cooper, I think it was meant for this game. I think Amari Cooper is going to have a big game against Brandon Stevens, and they're going to pick on that matchup. Another guy that I think could really struggle or could turn the tide for the Ravens is Malik Harrison, their second linebacker beside Roquan Smith. He'll be responsible too at floating in the middle of the field. He could be a guy that the Bills isolate with Ty Johnson or with James Cook or with Dalton Kincaid or with Dawson Knox. The Bills have so many different middle of the field weapons, and the Bills should be able to attack Roquan and especially Harrison out of the backfield or at tight end. So between Stevens and between the backs and the tight ends of the Bills, I think they're going to have a feast in the middle of the field and on the perimeter in those matchups for Josh Allen. On the other side, a lot of people are concerned about the Ravens' ability to run the ball with Derrick Henry. Like I said, a lot of injuries for the Bills the first time. Bernard and Milano are the X factors. Can Milano and Bernard both contain Derrick Henry, tackle Derrick Henry, keep him to a modest, especially early down gain? Can they just allow Henry to get 3 to 4 yards on first down, not necessarily 6, 7, 5 consistently, but 2 here and there, 4 here and there, 3, maybe a 1 every once in a while. Like, keep them to 4 or less on most carries on early downs, and that will force Lamar to try to throw the ball against a pretty good pass defense in the Buffalo Bills. I think a pass rush that could have a good day against this offensive line with Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Von Miller, and others. And a cornerback group that I think matches up overall decent against the Baltimore Ravens, especially if Zay is kind of limited with his injury, right? And he is also an X factor. Can he play or can he not? Because he's such a good player, such a dynamic player, especially with the ball in his hands for the Ravens. On top of that, I think those guys are X factors. Can they limit Derrick Henry? Because if they can't, the Ravens will be able to control the game through their running game, which is not where you want to be. And then all of a sudden, the Bills will have to sell out to stop the run. That's going to force Lamar to, go to the air where we've seen him be so creative, buying time and finding guys down the field. And we've seen him hit a lot of play action to guys like Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews in the middle of the field, where the Bills linebackers get sucked up and they can hit him down the field wide open, where Lamar's had so much success. I have a funky feeling that the Bills are going to take some of what they did in the second half of that Ravens game, stack the box a lot more, force Lamar to hit some one-on-ones on the outside, really make them throw the ball first if they want to win the game. That's kind of my feeling. That's not typically what the Bills do, but that's kind of what I think they're probably going to go with defensively, especially at home, and play to their crowd against the pass, especially. Now, some of the props that I think are interesting, I think this game does tend to lean towards a shootout. So I would probably lean towards the over. I also would lean towards taking Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Like I said, I think they're going to throw the ball quite a bit. I don't think they're going to run the ball as much as typical because the Ravens are number 1 in yards per attempt allowed this season in the run game. But their pass game is susceptible, in my opinion, because the individuals in coverage are susceptible. So I think that Allen will be throwing the ball a lot in the red zone. He's also capable of throwing a bomb for a touchdown. On top of that, I think Allen has really shown an ability to protect the ball. And I think an interception in this game by either quarterback would absolutely turn the tide. So I'm going to go under Josh Allen interception, half an interception as well. I like Amari Cooper over receiving yards at 21.5 or somewhere in that range. And on top of the 1.5 passing touchdowns, I would also bet, Tyler Bass to go over 2.5 extra points. I think that Lamar could have some yards in the running game. So looking at his rushing props are potentially there. I would try to stay away from Derrick Henry rushing yards just because I think that everyone's going to bet that. But I would look towards maybe the tight ends. If the Bills try very heavily to take away Derrick Henry, that's going to leave some matchups for Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, especially if Zay is somewhat limited in the receiving department. I would stay away from Rashad Bateman in this game just because I feel like Benford is a really good matchup for him by the Buffalo Bills in terms of size and stature. I like the Bills here. I think they're the better team. I think they've been the better team for a majority of the season. They're my number 1 team in the NFL right now. They were my Super Bowl pick. I like the fact that they're at home. I like the fact that they're going to be fully healthy ready for the Ravens. Zay Flowers' injury does kind of lurk over my head, and I do think that McDermott will have adjustments defensively to slow down Derrick Henry. On top of that, it's going to be cold. It's going to be in Buffalo, where the Bills have been nearly unstoppable, and Lamar is not quite as good in that weather, that cold, that potential, a little bit of a sloppy football, right? And Josh Allen is much better in that type of condition. So I like the Bills' ability to adjust from a coaching standpoint. I like Josh over Lamar in this weather, and I feel like the Bills are just a little bit better. I just think they're a little bit better, and especially in the passing game. So I'm going to take the Bills to win, and obviously I'll take the point as the underdog at home, which is just crazy to me that they're an underdog. But those are my picks, guys, for NFL Divisional Round. Those are my thoughts, the matchups, the X factors. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's Mitch. This is OwnersBox Fantasy. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you for the AFC and NFC Championship games. Peace.